Iran rewrote its nuclear position in 10 minutes. Not 10 days, not 10 hours. 10 minutes after Trump canceled the peace talks, Iran submitted a completely new paper. And Trump called it much better, but still not enough. So what exactly is in that gap? And how close are we to either a deal or a war? If you follow this conflict daily, drop a 10 minutes in the comments right now, because what happened on Saturday, April 26th, compressed weeks of diplomacy into a single morning, and most people completely missed it. Here is the operational sequence, verified in order. On Friday afternoon, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt announced that U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner would travel to Islamabad, Pakistan on Saturday for direct peace talks with Iran. The announcement was not symbolic. Pakistan's red zone was physically sealed. Pakistani soldiers were posted on rooftops. Paramilitary forces locked down every intersection on the airport access road. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Aragchi, had already landed at Nuran Air Base in Rawalpindi on Friday night, greeted by Pakistani officials on the tarmac. The machinery of a second round of negotiations was not just visible, it was photographed, operational, and in motion. Then Saturday morning arrived. Before Witkoff and Kushner had boarded their plane, Donald Trump picked up his phone and shut it down. Trump posted on Truth Social, "I just canceled the trip of my representatives going to Islamabad, Pakistan to meet with the Iranians. Too much time wasted on traveling, too much work." He added that Iran's leadership was experiencing tremendous infighting and confusion, that nobody inside Iran knew who was in charge, and that America held all the cards while Iran held none. He told reporters directly, "I've told my people a little while ago they were getting ready to leave, and I said, nope, you're not making an 18-hour flight to sit around talking about nothing. We have all the cards. They can call us anytime they want." And then, within 10 minutes of that cancellation being posted publicly, Iran sent a new paper. Trump confirmed it on the tarmac at Palm Beach International Airport before boarding Air Force One. He said Iran's original proposal offered a lot, but not enough. And then almost as a footnote, he added, "Interestingly, immediately when I canceled it, within 10 minutes, we got a new paper that was much better." Much better. But still not enough. A paper submitted 10 minutes after the cancellation. A paper Iran apparently had ready. A paper that Iran chose not to submit until Trump walked away. That single 10-minute window is the most important diplomatic event of this entire conflict, and it has been almost completely buried under headlines about the cancellation itself. If that detail just reframed how you see this war, share this right now with someone who thinks this is just noise. Because what happened on Saturday is the entire logic of this negotiation playing out in real time. To understand what the 10-minute paper actually means, you need to understand what was on the table before Trump walked. The New York Times and NBC News independently reported that the American position in Islamabad was a demand for a 20-year enrichment suspension and the physical removal of Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpile from Iranian soil entirely. Iran's counteroffer in the previous round was 3 to 5 years, with monitored downblending inside Iran rather than removal. That is the gap. 20 years versus 3 to 5. Physical removal versus monitored retention. When Trump said the new paper was much better but still not enough, the technical translation is almost certainly this. Iran moved from 3 to 5 years toward something longer. Iran did not reach 20 years. Iran did not concede on physical removal. The paper moved. The gap did not close. And the movement only happened after the cancellation. Now, here is the detail that almost no major outlet connected to Saturday's events. Witkoff and Kushner were not the first American officials whose trip to Islamabad was canceled this week. Vice President J.D. Vance had been scheduled to travel to Islamabad earlier in the week for negotiations. That trip was called off on Tuesday, not by Trump, but because Iran refused to agree to certain undisclosed conditions. 2 cancellations in 1 week. Vance on Tuesday, Witkoff and Kushner on Saturday. Between those 2 cancellations, Iran submitted the first paper, which Trump found inadequate. Then, within 10 minutes of the Saturday cancellation, Iran submitted the second paper, which Trump found much better, but still not enough. The negotiating architecture of this entire week was American trip canceled, Iranian paper received, American trip announced, American trip canceled again, better Iranian paper received immediately. Every American cancellation produced Iranian movement. The question the negotiators on both sides are now answering is, how much movement is left? Iran's Foreign Minister Aragchi did not wait around in Islamabad after submitting the second paper. He flew to Oman, then Russia. Oman is not a random stop. Oman mediated every pre-war nuclear negotiation in Muscat and Rome and carries a 40-year history of back-channel diplomacy between Washington and Tehran that no other country in the region can replicate. Russia is the country that Iranian President Pezeshkian personally briefed after the Islamabad talks collapsed on April 12th, and the country whose strategic partnership with Iran is the largest single variable that American pressure is trying to isolate. Aragchi, visiting both capitals immediately after submitting a paper that Trump called much better, is not a diplomatic pause. It is Iran building a coalition of pressure to carry back to the next round of talks. Pakistan's Prime Minister Sharif confirmed he spoke with Iran's president, described the process as continued engagement, and reaffirmed Pakistan's commitment as a facilitator. Pakistan sealed its capital twice in 2 weeks. Its military was deployed both times. Its prime minister is still calling it engagement. That is the language of a mediator that has bet its international credibility on this process and is not prepared to let it be declared dead. The Lebanon dimension collided with all of this on the same Saturday. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered what he described as powerful strikes against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, less than 48 hours after Trump announced a 3-week ceasefire extension for that theater. Hezbollah fired rockets in response the same day. Iran's position, unchanged since the beginning, is that any Iran ceasefire must also cover Lebanon. America's position, unchanged since the beginning, is that Lebanon is a separate conflict. On the same Saturday that Trump canceled the Pakistan talks and Iran sent a much better paper in 10 minutes, Israeli strikes and Hezbollah rockets were exchanged inside what was technically a ceasefire zone. And Trump told Axios, when asked whether canceling the talks meant the war would resume, no, it doesn't mean that. We haven't thought about it yet. We haven't thought about it yet. This is the answer from the man who said the shooting would start bigger and stronger than anything the world has ever seen if talks failed. The ceasefire is extended indefinitely. The blockade continues as long as it takes. The Hormuz mines require 6 months to clear after the war formally ends. Netanyahu ordered strikes within 48 hours of the Lebanon extension. And the President of the United States, when asked what canceling peace talks means for the war, said he hasn't thought about it yet. Then he went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The ceasefire is not a peace. The cancellation is not a collapse. The 10-minute paper is not a concession. It is a signal that Iran is watching every Trump decision in real time, adjusting in real time, and calibrating exactly how much pressure it takes to make America feel like it has won enough to stay at the table. Trump has now reduced the entire architecture of this negotiation to a single condition. If they want to talk, all they have to do is call. No 18-hour flight, no red zone lockdown. A phone call. The same posture that produced the moment on April 14th, when markets registered a signal that the right people had called, and the S&P 500 erased all its Iran war losses in a single trading session. Witkoff and Kushner have a plane. Trump has a phone. Aragchi has Oman and Russia, and whatever those meetings produce when he returns to Pakistan early next week. And the distance between much better and enough measured in years of enrichment suspension and tons of uranium, is exactly the distance that the next paper is being engineered through Oman and Russia and Pakistan to close. Trump said it himself. They offered a lot, but not enough. They will not have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. 20 years versus 3 to 5. Physical removal versus monitored retention. A much better paper in 10 minutes that was still not enough. If it is very simple, the demand is simple. The delivery is not. And the gap between a lot and enough is the precise distance at which this war will be resolved, or where the indefinite ceasefire quietly becomes the permanent condition of the U.S.-Iran relationship. We track every verified development in this conflict daily, every contradiction between what is announced and what actually happens. Before Aragchi returns from Oman and Russia with whatever pressure he has assembled, share this now. 3 questions. Every comment is read. The sharpest analysis gets featured. Question A. Iran submitted a paper Trump found inadequate. Trump canceled the trip. Iran submitted a much better paper in 10 minutes. If Iran could produce that paper in 10 minutes, what was the strategic calculation behind not submitting it first? Is this negotiating flexibility or deliberate pressure management? Question B. Aragchi is now in Oman, a country with a 40-year history of direct back-channel access to both Washington and Tehran. And then Russia, which Iran's president personally briefed after the last breakdown. If those 2 visits produce a coordinated third paper, what specific element of the nuclear deal changes that Pakistani mediation alone has not been able to move? Question C. Trump said canceling talks does not automatically mean war resumes, and added he hasn't thought about it yet. The ceasefire is indefinite. The blockade runs as long as it takes. The mines take 6 months to clear. Netanyahu ordered strikes within 48 hours of the Lebanon extension. What is the specific scenario in the next 30 days that produces a signed agreement versus the scenario where this indefinite ceasefire quietly becomes the permanent state of the U.S.-Iran relationship? If this level of analysis is what you want every day, subscribe. It takes 1 second, and it means you won't miss the paper that actually closes the gap.